Marvel Rivals is looking like a straight clone of Overwatch, but it's not just the gameplay style, which is obviously very similar. There's actually so many hidden similarities that have been shown in the trailer, along with leaks from early playtesters, which we'll cover in today's video. If you like gaming content and specifically are interested in Marvel Rivals, make sure to subscribe to the channel as I plan on following this game's release, but in today's video, we'll be discussing the striking similarities between Marvel Rivals and Overwatch, because let me tell you, there is a lot of them. But one thing which is different is the third-person style of gameplay, similar to that of a game like Fortnite, whereas Overwatch is entirely first-person. Now this is all up to preference on whether you prefer first-person shooters or third-person shooters, but as someone like me who grew up on games like Call of Duty and Overwatch, I think it's going to take a little bit to get adjusted to, but I'm not overall that worried. However, others are worried, as an early playtester in the closed alpha leaked on Reddit last night even before the trailer dropped, stating this message right here. I'm in the closed alpha for this. It's such a straight up Overwatch clone, it's ridiculous. The only difference being it's all third person. I only played one match so far, but the art, game design, and everything else feels like such a knockoff of Overwatch. The roster's pretty big though, and not too rough around the edges and polish. It's just 5 years too late to enter this market. Now this early playtester believes that Marvel Rivals is too late to the market and it's going to be a complete ripoff of Overwatch, and honestly, after watching the trailer, I do have to agree with some of his points, which we'll go more in depth later. But I will say I disagree that Marvel Rivals is too late to the game. If anything, I think they've timed it correctly. With Overwatch being on a rapid decline the past couple years, I think there's a need for a PvP styled game similar to Overwatch, but one that actually listens to their community. But he does have a point with the ripoff of the game Overwatch. Although I do think the two games are going to differ in a lot of aspects, there are so many similarities that we just have to cover. And although I have so much high hopes for this Marvel game and I genuinely do think it looks like a good game, we got to discuss why these games are so similar. So the first one is probably the most obvious, and that is that Marvel Rivals is a PvP styled game just like Overwatch. Both games are centered around a team PvP matchup, with Overwatch now being 5v5, but originally they did start out as a 6v6 game in Overwatch 1, and in Marvel Rivals it is going to be 6v6 as well. Team composition is going to be massive in Marvel Rivals, which is the exact same within Overwatch. If you've ever played the game Overwatch, you understand that there is different metas and certain heroes work better together than others, which is going to apply to Marvel Rivals, if not even more than Overwatch, as there's going to be things called team-ups, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So essentially, both games are the same in that these teams are going to have to be built with their strengths and weaknesses in mind, aiming for a well-rounded team that will cover all the aspects of team fights. This isn't going to be a game like Call of Duty where you just spawn in with whatever operator you choose and just kind of run around mindlessly. There is going to be a lot more strategy going into Marvel Rivals character selection the same way that Overwatch has. And this is because of the next thing, which is the unique skill sets that each character brings or each hero brings to the team. So just like Overwatch and Marvel Rivals, each hero is going to have a certain ability, a certain ultimate, a certain set of skills that they can apply in the game. And the choice of these heroes directly affect the team's strategy in countering the other team's heroes or using your teammates' heroes to your advantage. So those are the obvious similarities between the games. The games just run the same way. It's just the same style of PvP gameplay. But another thing people really noticed, and the first thing I really noticed about this trailer and Overwatch, is that the artistic direction and UI is eerily similar. Like when I first saw the trailer, I almost thought I was looking at an Overwatch map, and that is very apparent if you've ever played the game, that Marvel Rivals clearly took inspiration from Overwatch's vibrant color palette, sleek design, and clear indications of health, abilities, and cooldowns, making it very familiar, user-friendly, and honestly, it feels a bit like family-friendly, which I'm sure is a target audience they were trying to go for. At the end of the day, this game is coming from Marvel. And this is a design choice I appreciate. I love seeing brighter color palettes, and I think it's smart that they took an artistic direction from Overwatch, as I think Overwatch's art is one of its key benefits in the game's success. Now, along with the art, a big thing in that is the map design, and the maps look so similar to Overwatch with choke points, high ground advantage points, objectives. The flow of these maps, albeit we only had a 2-minute trailer, look very similar to how Overwatch's maps flow. Now, maybe the game modes are going to be different than those in Overwatch, so these maps will play a little bit differently depending on the game mode you're playing. However, the maps look very, very similar in how they're structured and just how they look in general. Now, going back to the heroes, there are so many heroes that have direct parallels in Marvel Rivals to Overwatch just from watching the trailer. So the first one I noticed is that the Hulk hero is eerily similar to Doomfist. If you just watch the Hulk's abilities, Doomfist basically does the exact same things, and there's way more characters that do this. Like, for example, Doctor Strange, when he opens up that portal, and I believe Spider-Man and someone else hops in, I can't remember. That is going to be the exact same ability as Symmetra's teleport, albeit Doctor Strange's looks way cooler, but it is the same concept where you're just teleporting to a different area on the map. And once again, a character like Iron Man is going to work the exact same way as the hero Pharah in Overwatch, with its ability to float up and shoot rockets down on people. Now, I don't totally blame Marvel here at all. It's very difficult to come up with brand new concepts for fighting features like teleporting and using your fists to fight and having a jetpack character that shoots rockets. Doesn't just mean they're completely ripping off Overwatch, but the similarities are absolutely there, and I just have to mention those in this video, as a lot of the characters that you're going to be using in Marvel's Rivals is going to be very similar to characters you've used in Overwatch. So I'd almost say that if you used to play Overwatch, you might transition into this game pretty seamlessly, because a lot of these characters work the exact same way. But one way and one massive difference I took away from these two games, there's like two massive differences, and I'll talk about these two right now, which I think are making Marvel Rivals stand apart from Overwatch, is team-up abilities and map destruction. So let's first talk about these team-up abilities, as they're so cool, and it's one of the most hyped things I saw within this trailer. So essentially, from what it looks like, you can team up with another hero on your team to perform some type of crazy combo. In the trailer, we saw the team-up ability of Rocket Raccoon and Groot combining their powers for some devastating effects. What happened was, I believe Rocket Raccoon hopped on Groot's shoulders and they just absolutely demolished the entire map, I believe destroying like a Loki statue, which was so cool to see, and I just can't wait to use this ability in the actual closed beta whenever we get access to that. I believe it said sometime in May at the end of the trailer, so that is going to be so much fun, just being able to team up different characters, different heroes, and seeing what their abilities combined together can do on the map. I think that's going to cause a ton of different strategies, and it's going to add just one more unique element to the game that Overwatch simply didn't have. And I think this is really important for Marvel Rivals to have things like this to differentiate themselves from other games like Overwatch or Paladins or Smite. But as I said, there is also another key difference in Overwatch and Marvel Rivals, and that other key difference is destructible environments, which, man, oh man, I am so happy to see this coming to the game Marvel Rivals. As a massive fan of any game that has destructible environments, I think this is huge. It's going to add a whole another layer to gameplay. I don't know how many of you guys have played the game The Finals, but that game is so much fun because of the destructible environments. That is literally what makes that game so great, is that you can destroy anything on the map and it changes the entire gameplay. You can knock down an entire building and now the enemy team might have to take another route, and this is going to be the same exact way for Marvel Rivals. Now within Overwatch, you could argue the fact that there are a few destructible things on the map, but realistically, they are very minor. It'd be like boxes on an objective point. They wouldn't really have any effect, but on Marvel Rivals, it appears that you can destroy literal bridges, or you can destroy massive statues that fall on top of the objective point and make it more difficult to capture. So these destructible environments are going to play a huge role in changing the gameplay style of Marvel Rivals and differentiating itself from other games like Overwatch. But honestly, those were the only two differences I saw, so let's go back to those similarities. As another one, albeit very small one, is teammate visibility. So just like Overwatch, you will be able to see your teammates through walls, which is a feature in both games. It aids in coordination and planning, and it allows players to quickly assess their team's positions and status, which I think is vital for team PvP games. You see this feature across pretty much every game that I personally played. I know it's in Call of Duty, it's in Overwatch, and it's going to be in Marvel Rivals. But another thing that is going to be similar is the competitive framework between both of these games, as it's rumored that Marvel Rivals is in fact going to have a competitive game mode, which, let's be real, I feel like everyone knew this was coming. With a PvP styled game, it's almost apparent that it just is going to have a competitive ladder, which is awesome. I usually find that competitive ladders, me personally, are way more enjoyable than the casual quick play components of a game. But in addition to a competitive ladder, there are rumors that Marvel Rivals wants to create its very own esport with the game, which, if it's very similar to Overwatch, we could obviously see that happen, as the Overwatch League was a massive league. It just actually shut down this year, but it was a long-standing league for quite some time and a top esport, and we could very well see this with Marvel Rivals doing the exact same thing, creating their very own esport. So that should be absolutely interesting. As someone who's a fan of esports, it will be cool to see another game join the market, but I think that is something for later down the line, like a year after release, and seeing how impactful the game is on the esports industry, because this game could very well be a flop. Although it does look amazing right now, it could flop. You never know. Now, another thing that has some very similar aspects, and I think this one is kind of a reach, going back to the maps, both Overwatch and Marvel's maps are going to be lore-driven maps. The maps in both games are not just mere battleground maps made up, they're steeped in the lore of their respective universes. This immersion into the game's world adds a layer of depth and connection to the characters and settings for the players. So if you are a massive Marvel fan, and if you watched all the movies, you watched the TV shows, you are going to notice a lot of things within these maps that carry over from those movies and just the Marvel universe as a whole. And this is the exact same way as Overwatch. If you kept up with the Overwatch stories, you would know that there is a whole lore, there's a whole Overwatch universe, and it carries over into the games. The maps are from that universe, and it's going to work the exact same way in Marvel Rivals. So if you are a massive fan of Marvel, this would be a really cool plus. And last but not least, another similarity is going to be the ultimate abilities, which I know we briefly touched on the character abilities and movesets, but there are going to be ultimates, which is essentially a charged up attack. In Overwatch, you wait for the bar to go to 100%. It's going to work the exact same way. Within Marvel Rivals, you're going to have an ultimate that you kind of have to just wait for a certain period of time, and then you like strategically time it up with your other teammates to use your ult all at the same time and wipe the enemy team. If you played Overwatch, it's going to work the exact same way within Marvel Rivals. So those are my 14 similarities between the games Marvel Rivals and Overwatch. If you found anything else that might be similar between the games, please leave them down in the comment section. Subscribe to the channel if you're excited for this game, and I'll see you guys in the next one.